Before Don't Worry Darling. Don't Worry Darling is the movie directed by Olivia Wilde. I was a little bit looking forward to this movie. I was a fan of Wilde's previous work, her directorial debut with Booksmart, which I was a fan of. I like that very much. Did you all check out Booksmart there, Nick and Rose?
Oh,
Yeah, after the
absolutely.
fact, I did.
Yeah, Booksmart, I think I was like one of the 10 people to see it in theaters when it came out, but the more I've revisited it, the more it's turned into kind of one of my favorite teen comedies of all time. And not just that, one of my favorite movies of 2019 when it came out.
Yeah.
It's just such a brilliant takedown of a brilliant on paper version. It's just a gender swapped super bad, but the more you think about what the movie is trying to say and the more of the content of the film and how much of those jokes hit, it just ends up being a just brilliantly made movie. And there's an argument scene between Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever in that film that's all done in one take, that's just painting back and forth between them. And more stuff is added to the background. And I'm a sucker for long takes in films whenever they're done well. And chef's kiss.
Yeah. Rose, same thing for you?
Yeah. I had missed it in theaters, but heard really, really good things about it. And so, yeah, I think I ended up checking it out like a year or so later. And yeah, totally agree on all points. It's exceptionally good.
Yeah. So I was kind of, that kind of, I was also a big fan of Booksmart. That's what kind of led me to be excited about this new movie of hers, Don't Worry, Darling. Also, it's got a pretty good cast. Florence Pugh, who's on the rise right now. She's kind of I'd say one of the most popular.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's definitely the new it girl. You have other fantastic additions to the cast, like Nick Kroll, like Olivia Wilde herself, like Kiki Lane, like Chris Pine, Gemma Chan.
Yeah.
Notice there's one name you're not naming.
Yeah, and that goes into kind of one of the things that we were talking about. Originally, a role that was supposed to be, so Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be the Harry Styles role. He's supposed to be the husband to Florence Pugh in the movie. Then there was discussion about how he left the project, and then Olivia Wilde said that she fired him, and then he said, "No, you didn't fire me," and he's got a whole list of receipts about it, like texts and saying that.
He came with the receipts.
So like, I don't want to be an asshole about it, but I mean, you didn't fire me. I left, to on my own volition. And then that came out about all that stuff. And Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles, they're together. And then there was.
They had a very public affair during the filming of the movie.
Yeah. And then apparently that caused a lot of problems with Florence Pugh, where she, because they were apparently like making out all the time on set and kind of unprofessional work kind of going on while during the filming of it. So that caused a lot of trouble there. So
if you ever been in an office environment where the boss is sleeping with one of the employees, you know exactly what kind of situation we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So this kind of was, I guess, caused a lot of uncomfortableness. Florence Pugh refused to do press, a large portion of press for the movie that she just kind of didn't even show up for. So that kind of part of the reason there that, that was some little bit drama.
Even after the fact, Olivia Wilde's kind of saving face. It was like people coming after Florence Pugh of not promoting the movie on social media. And even she was like, I pay her to act in my movie, not to like post on Instagram or shit.
Right.
Yeah. So she had to, I guess.
Then just the sheer amount of projects that Florence Pugh has lined up, even after this, I'm not shocked she's busy, because even she said that I literally only have time to do the Venice Film Festival. I have to do whatever festival it premiered at, Cannes, I guess, the one where they give every single movie that comes out there a 12-minute standing ovation.
Yeah. So she's on the rise. Her career is really big right now. She's a new it girl. And then you have Harry Styles, who he made his acting debut back in Dunkirk. I believe that was his first acting debut there.
He went from his music career to the one direction that it could possibly go, to acting.
Yeah.
Uh,
To that, yeah. So I don't know anything about One Direction really, and I think neither does Christopher Nolan because when he was in the movie Christopher Nolan, I didn't know who the hell that dude was. He's like I guess he's some big star. I guess he's like and apparently he got it on his own merit. I guess like he went in and they said he was really good. That's what the casting people said that he was very good in the audition. So yeah, he kind of has now transitioned into an acting career like most music people do. Some people can be really good at it. Janelle Monáe. She's very good at it. She's incredibly talented. She's not only a great musician, but I also think she's a very fine actor.
Lady Gaga is another fantastic example just off of Star is Born, or even the bits of American Horror Story where Ryan Murphy actually let her act.
Yeah. And
Jared Leto is also there.
Was he an actor first and then a musician, or was he like people knew him as a musician and then I think people knew him as an actor first, right?
When did 30
It
Seconds
was like a
to
little bit of
Mars
both
get
at the
big?
same time.
I think it was like synergy of when it happened.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd count him completely in that category of musician, actor, people, turned actor. But yeah. So you have a lot of good examples of musicians who went into acting and done very well. Whether that's the case for Harry Styles in this movie, well, we'll let you know in a little bit. So the premise of this movie kind of going on here is it takes place in 1950s America. You have this, perfect, Americana here, people hanging out, miss the old days where women, they used to just, they used to know their place. They used to dress up, high heels, makeup, stay at home, cook and clean. And the men, they used to be men. What happened to men? Men used to
be able to go to work, come home with a cocktail and some ass waiting.
Yeah, women dressed in full makeup, high heels, cooking in the kitchen, but now everything's all messed up, now women want to be men. Now they want to have careers and shit, you know what I mean? Like,
want to have, guess what, Josh, you'll never guess this, rights.
Yeah, rights, yeah, what the hell?
Next thing you know, they'll want to vote. It's honestly disgusting.
No, it's so ridiculous. Where's it gonna end?
Where's it gonna end? Yeah, they want to have hairy armpits and blue hair. Like, what the hell is going on? But this
want to do what they want to their own body. What chicanery is this?
But this kind of takes you back to that. You have this kind of 50 suburb that they're living in. Like I said, women staying at home, the men go to work. They go to work at this so-called Victory Project, top secret type of thing. And none of the women, they don't really even technically know what the men do when they go off to work. They just know that they're working on something very important, and they have to be home to support them. Florence Pugh here, she plays a character named Alice, and with her character named Alice, which I just realized, like Alice, like, oh, it's like Alice in Wonderland. I just realized that. I'm like, oh shit, right? Which kind of goes into a lot of like,
you just realized some of this very obvious symbolism that is going on in this movie.
Yeah, I just caught on like Alice in Wonderland, like many on the nose kind of half baked kind of ideas kind of going on in this movie. But yeah, she plays a character named Alice, who's the wife of Harry Styles' character Jack, who in the movie he's supposed to be British. They say he's British, but then I don't know what accent. It's like he's trying to do an American accent plus a British, like he's like his tongue is fighting his mouth or something. I don't know.
Okay, I saw that criticism, but there's a point in the movie where it actually kind of makes sense.
Okay. So yeah, maybe that. Yeah, and we'll get into spoilers too, because I want to talk about the end of this movie.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be very hard to talk about this movie and a lot of the thematic elements without getting into spoilers.
So
it's impossible.
Yeah, so we'll give a spoil. We're going to give a rating, and then after the rating, we'll give our spoiler talk on it. But yeah, so that's basically the setup of this movie here, is that they play a husband and wife, Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, and they kind of live in this world. And slowly throughout the movie, Florence Pugh kind of sees these irregularities in this world. Slowly things that start to look off and weird, and kind of what's going on, these strange events that kind of happen. You have this kind of head figure.
Starting with a black woman being able to freely walk in a suburb in the 1950s.
Yeah, you got kind of that kind of going on there, that weird kind of occurrence kind of going on. Yeah, so she starts to see those kind of weird things kind of going on. You also have this head figure here who looks like he runs this whole place, who's played by Chris Pine. His character named Frank, who Olivia Wilde said that this character is based on Jordan Peterson. If you don't know Jordan Peterson, he's a big figure.
That's very obvious, especially when you get towards the end of the movie.
Jordan Peterson figure. If you don't know who he is,
the one criticism I would say, they needed to have picked an uglier actor to play him. Just to mock that kind of Kermit the Frog looking pencil neck little shithead.
Yeah. So you can look him up. Tons of people have done videos about him and he interviews and everything like that. Just type in YouTube and you'll kind of get all that information about him. But Olivia Wilde said that she did base this character off of him.
He's another one of those like manosphere. It's like masculinity is dying because women have rights.
Yeah. Which fits
kind
into
of right-wing grifters that have just gotten so popular over the last couple of years.
Yeah, kind of fits into the theme of kind of this movie and everything like that. So yeah, you can kind of find that. So you have this main guy, Frank, who's kind of running everything. She starts to question kind of her existence throughout the movie, and it kind of leads you further down into her trying to discover what is really going on in this neighborhood. I'll start off. I'll say something positive about it. Florence Pugh, I think, is good, as she always is very good, usually even in mediocre kind of bad things. I liked her. Like, she was one of the best things in Black Widow. I always talk about that. She was.
I think you meant to say she was the best thing in Black Widow.
Yeah, the only good thing about Black Widow.
Well, yeah, for some people, the only good thing, because even if people didn't like that movie, they go like, well, hey, Florence Pugh was really, really good in the movie. She's typically very good. I first saw her when she was in Midsommar, which I was a big fan of that movie as well, and I thought that was also very good, and she was fantastic in it. And here she does a decent job as well, I think, for what she's given, playing this person who's very distressed, playing this person who's kind of finding out all these things, looking at all these different things, and saying what is kind of really going on. And I did enjoy her performance. What about you all there? Nick, what about you?
Oh, make no mistake, Florence Pugh is always amazing, and most of the entire cast is as well. It's like all of them really sell being in this kind of dystopian fantasy of the 1950s, except for one blind spot that I've been neglectful to mention up until this point, and that is Harry Styles. And even then, I don't think he's terrible in the movie. I just think he's average at best, which only looks worse in comparison to everybody else in this cast.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting like the Room style performance from him, and he was.
I was expecting,
fine.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa.
Yeah, I thought he was just fine. I was actually kind of disappointed by how just fine he was.
No, it's like I'd put Harry Styles in this over Ansel Elgort in West Side Story. That's how fine I think he is.
Yeah. With Harry Styles, I don't think he's god awful, but I don't think he's that exciting necessarily. I don't know. I mean, some of it is he looks kind of too young to be with Florence Pugh, even though Florence Pugh is only 26. But they're
close to the same age, and a lot of it I think is helped by the fact that Harry Styles isn't really a main character in it. Florence Pugh is. And Harry Styles is more of a background character for most of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Russ.
No, so he's just kind of a tertiary character until he's not.
Yeah.
Getting into spoilers.
Yeah, and you kind of see the interaction that Florence Pugh has, like you said, with the other members here, the other wives. Like you have Olivia Wilde, who's in this movie, who she has a decent sized role in this. Olivia Wilde, she's always very strong, and typically in things that she's in, I think she's fine. The kind of other wives, also one of the other prominent wives that you see here is Gemma Chan, who's kind of like her being the husband of Chris Pine's character Frank. She's kind of the head woman in charge in this situation. She leads like this ballet class that they have. Again, I think a lot of that is kind of on the nose type commentary type thing, which I thought that was kind of maybe done better in something maybe like Suspiria or something like that. So you kind of have her here. She's kind of just barely a character. I mean, she almost feels like a robot from something like Ex Machina or something like that. Like, she kind of feels like she's kind of barely even a character in this, even though I think she is very talented. I like Gemma Chan, but I feel like she kind of doesn't really do much in this movie. How did you all feel about the other kind of wives characters in this and kind of how they added to the movie?
Well,
they were all pretty interesting, including Gemma Chan. Where, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Rose. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they're all interesting in different ways, kind of different flavors of the same lollipop. You want to know what's going on more. There is a point where Gemma Chan's character kind of does something very interesting, but that's all that is of it and is of her, and it's just like, oh well, all right, I guess.
Yeah, all of the wife characters, I think they do a good job of selling, because a big influence on this film is the play Gaslight, and how like most of the film involves Florence Pugh like slowly starting to question this like existence, and everybody else just calling her crazy for it. So Gaslight is a huge part of that, and most of the wives characters serve a lot to enrich that aspect of the movie up until they don't, which happens somewhere towards the third act, that we really got to get to spoilers so we can talk about that.
Yeah. I think, my issue with this movie is, like I said before, it's a lot of half-baked ideas. A lot of things I don't think that's really fully thought out. The kind of, I guess, sci-fi nature of the movie that you'll kind of see, or, a dystopian kind of, thing that you'll see in this movie. Maybe this would have worked if it was an hour episode of Black Mirror or something like that. A lot of people have said that, like maybe it was something like Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, that you could have just done this concept real quick, and then been done with it, instead of doing a 2 hour plus movie that this is, which even though this movie's 2 hour plus, it feels like even towards the ending, I also think is pretty sloppy. Just kind of ends and then that's it. I don't think it has even a good satisfying ending. And I understand, the themes and everything it's talking about, but I don't think it's fully going further enough with them or has enough good execution in any of those themes. And we're going to get into a little bit, and what I mean by that when we get into a little bit of a spoiler discussion on it. I think, besides Florence Pugh, I think the other performances, they're fine. They're good in it. Like you have some other kind of characters here, and then kind of you see their lives and everything. When the kind of reveal comes of what happens, is, again, I think that should have been more of probably the majority of the movie, instead of kind of what we see mainly at first. And then with the Chris Pine character, he's supposed to be this big, figure that you see of like, why do so many of these people listen to him, follow him, hang on every word he says? And throughout most of the movie, Chris Pine is just looking. He just posted up. He just looking, you know what I mean? Just looking at, Florence Pugh, or just looking off, smirking. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? It's
it kind of feels like a waste of Chris Pine's talents, because we know what the guy is capable of. And even early in his career, we know he's not afraid to play against type. Like, one of his early roles was in Smokin' Aces as this inbred redneck psychopath where he ate.
Yeah, and he also did great work in things like Hell or High Water. He also did a fantastic job in that. So he's got the chops. It's not like he can't, but it's just like there really isn't just anything about him, you know what I mean, besides for a few interactions that he has with Florence Pugh that, like, you really get a sense of him as a character, or anything about him. So I thought that was a complete waste in every way.
He needed to have a lot more menace to his character, as well as, I think, establish him earlier in the film as a much more like charming, enigmatic presence, versus what the film gives him, where it's a couple scenes where he gets to monologue, which in pockets, I think those scenes work for what the film is for what Don't Worry Darling is going for, but taken as a whole, it just feels like it's padding the runtime.
Well, would it surprise you at all? Would it surprise you at all if I told you his character wasn't in the original script?
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So you just kind of got tacked on. Okay. Rose, what did you think about Chris Pine's character?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Like they build him up as this almost deity kind of figure, like to make you
Mhm,
think that, oh, maybe this is some kind of cult or something. We've seen this kind of
mhm,
character in movies and TV before. We've seen these kind of people in real life. Like for crying out loud, there is a framed photo of him in like the public square or something like that. It's like, oh, okay, so this guy is the boss of this company. He's the founder of this neighborhood. He's God
mhm.
to these people, maybe. And
And
then
and
yeah,
then and then just like have a couple interactions undercutting that where just in moments between like individual characters, he's just like a normal fucking dude,
yeah,
which only makes
and
people like that more terrifying in real life.
yeah, and when you finally know what's going on, which again we'll get more into this later, when you finally know what's going on and what his connection to everything is, it just feels so undercooked. I mean, it was just like, oh,
Mhm,
I you had three-fourths of an idea here. Why didn't you go the rest of the way and make it complete?
Mm,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, to to compare this to another film that I think gets this kind of same criticism as it's like a half-baked sci-fi plot. All of the filmmaking around it is really good, but it's just if you stop to think about what's actually going on for more than 3 seconds, it kind of falls apart. Comparing it to a film like Us.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that is
Yeah,
exactly how I felt.
yeah, comparing it to a film like Us where I think with Jordan Peele's script in that movie, even if that idea feels half baked, thematically what he is going for, it's more fulfilled after you've seen the film versus what I think you have here, where all of the things that Olivia Wilde is exploring with this, I think they are executed well, but it's all done on a very surface level. It's
Mm,
all done very superficially, which I think you needed another pass on the script in order to get something really, really, really phenomenal out of this kind of script, out of this kind of film.
yeah. Yeah.
Because even as I say, even as much as I'm dogging on the film, it's it is a very well made movie. It's like everything from the soundtrack to the score through the production design to the costuming and the cinematography. It's fantastic,
Yeah. I think
but
the
it really falls
technical
apart
elements.
in
Yeah.
its script.
Yeah, I think the technical elements really work. You know what I mean? The cinematography of it, the look of it, costume design, performances. I think those work fine. They're okay. It's just as far as like with sci-fi movies, sometimes especially with some that are as mostly concepts as these are kind of you're doing.
Mhm,
You don't have to get into every little detail of how every little thing
mhm,
works, but you at least have to set up like why is this happening? What's kind of going on? What's the kind of the like why would this be happening? And really explain more. Like we mentioned, us had some ideas, but it just kind of was like, wait, but if you really think about it, it's like, but how is this all this is really happening? And I think that's kind of the failure
yes,
a little bit of us.
yes, yes, but yeah, but those questions come after the movie has kind of explored those themes about like class struggle, to where you're so distracted by that along with everything else in that movie that you kind of don't even think about all of those like little minutia of how this scheme would work until long after you've seen the movie. Whereas with here, it, whether it be because the film's pacing is it drags so heavily throughout its second act and the third act is just really kind of unsatisfying, where I couldn't help but think of those questions.
Yeah. Rose, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's. I mean, to quote Futurama, it just left me thinking that raises further questions. Like it
I
is
have
very
so many
much
more
like
questions.
it is very much like us. Thank you for stealing my joke. Um, that yeah, it's once they give away the game, once they let you know what's actually going on, it's just like, well, if X, then Y, like you can't have this without this, and why is this way? And oh, well, if this is going to happen, then it's just this miasma of just really annoying questions. And what is the most annoying about all of this is that this happens not all just in the third act, but in the last like 10 minutes of the movie. It just
Yeah.
throws all this stuff at you, and you're like, oh,
It's
wait, it's over?
I
What
don't
the
I
fuck?
don't even think it I don't think it's even like the last 10, and that's being generous. I think it's like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah. And it's also pretty repetitive in a lot of stuff it does, you know what I mean? Like she once she sees her big one freak out, then she keeps having more freakouts and going, you know what I mean? That kind of constantly happens and it kind of throws all this different weird imagery at you, trying to kind of excite you and everything like that. And I think it fails to do that as well. So I'm gonna give my rating on it, and we're gonna get into spoilers. So for me, I think I would just give it a stream it for me, kind of a maybe a lower or middle stream it. Um, you know, maybe something that you could find some value in when you just watch it at home and look at some of the concepts of it and go like, okay, that's I could see where you could do better with that. Like I said, technically there's some good things like the costume design or the cinematography. Florence Pugh being very good in the movie. But other than that, I don't think it's that exciting of a movie really. So for me, I would just give it a kind of low stream it for me. Rose, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. I originally wasn't going to see it until it was on streaming. Um, and I kind of wish that had been the case. I mean, at least I saw a matinee and it was cheaper. It's just, it's frustrating that there is a better movie in all of this, and they got so close to realizing it and just didn't quite get there. And it's really confusing as to why. Um,
Mm,
Baffled by just how kind of it puttered out right at the end. And then talking about the imagery, like a minute ago, all the crazy visuals and weird stuff that you see in the trailer, like her wrapping the saran wrap around her head and like the empty eggshells and stuff.
mm,
That, as the movie went along, that all rang to me of just, ooh, this will look cool in the trailer because you can tell it is connected to the larger plot, but not in any substantive way or in ways that are just so like fifth grader writing a book report, like, oh, she feels trapped by the life of a 50s housewife, and therefore the house is literally closing in on her and squishing her. And it's like,
yeah.
okay, we get it. Um, yeah, but it is, he said, beautifully shot and very well acted from pretty much everyone all around. I mean, even Harry
from
Styles as
from like 99.99% of the cast, it's very well acted.
Yeah.
yeah, and the one weak link is just kind of he's just okay.
Eh,
He's not terrible. Don't go in looking for a laughably bad performance. I don't think you're going to find it.
Mm,
But some of the other actors, even though they did give good performances, I thought they were underutilized. Like, how are you going to have someone as funny as Nick Kroll and not really give him anything funny to do? I mean, he's kind of just menacing throughout the whole movie, which successfully so. But it's just like, well, it's almost distracting because I'm just expecting him to be funny.
mm, yeah.
Yeah, it's a streaming movie. Don't pay for it in theaters. It's yeah. I mean, I've had worse ways to waste 2 hours in a movie theater, I guess. But eh.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. Nick?
Again, everything about this film, everything on paper about this should work. It's like it's the follow-up feature to Olivia Wilde, who came out the gate running with a film like Booksmart. And now she's tackling this really high concept sci-fi, almost horror thriller with this deconstruction of gender roles in something like in Don't Worry Darling, casting a brilliant young new coming talent in Florence Pugh, who's quickly establishing herself as one of the women that 20 years from now we're going to talk about her as one of the great actors of this generation. And everything about this worked: the cinematography, the production design, the costuming, the score, the excuse me, the tension building in certain scenes, all of it works. However, it has a problem where it gets really repetitive throughout its second and especially towards its third act, where the cat's already out of the bag, and yet you're repeating a lot of the same scenes and not doing anything with them. It's like, as much controversy as this movie is getting, it's really not worth it because the movie is just kind of mid, and I've got to give this a stream it.
Yeah. So 3 streamings all around. So we're gonna get into spoilers. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, probably give it like maybe 10 minutes or so, and then we're gonna be kind of spoiling, and then we're gonna move on to Andor.
All right. So spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the entire thing is a simulation that's basically written by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. So what happens is, so the whole reveal is that this whole 1950s America, like Nick said, it's a virtual reality world. That Jack has basically all the wives there against their will with their husbands, except for Olivia Wilde's character.
Are they? Or are they? Which is a question that is just touched on.
Yeah, because like you have some woman, like you have Olivia Wilde, who's there voluntarily because she's there because her kids died in the real world, but here she, in this virtual reality, she gets to see her kids. So she's there voluntarily. She knows what's going on, but she, kind of likes to stay there. So you see the relationship in the real world between Jack and Alice, who's Harry Styles and Florence Pugh. You see that Harry Styles, I guess, I don't know, you can't really say he's an incel because he's with Florence Pugh.
He's a guy that has lost his job, and a lot of the breadwinning has fallen onto his wife. And it clearly, because we keep flashing back to a time when they were in the real world happy together, and it's like, it's okay, we'll figure something out. And we don't know how much time has passed, but Florence Pugh is exhausted. She's a successful doctor, but very overworked. She's kind of their marriage is like really strained, and Harry Styles, after who knows how long of being unemployed, has fallen into the manosphere.
Yeah, you see him, he's got his headphones on listening to the podcast of Chris Pine's character. He's going to see
listening
that
to nonstop Andrew Tate TikToks.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's just falling into, like you said, the manosphere type stuff. And the look they give him, I mean, it's very like dirty, ratty hair and a beard. It's like,
that made me laugh.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is, this is the look of a loser. You know what I mean? He's got the beanie on and the, the cardigan.
Yeah, you just go to a bar in Austin and that dude is pulling.
Yeah. So that's supposed to mean that he's falling on really hard times and he's a loser.
And this was the first thing that came to mind, is like seeing him in that supposedly like loser makeup. Was seeing Ben Barnes in season 2 of The Punisher, where he's supposed to be like hideously scarred up to play Jigsaw, and the scar makeup they gave him just made him hotter.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, yeah. So it's like this is kind of ridiculous. I mean, that made me laugh. I thought that was ridiculous. So you see that
it's like the male equivalent of giving Rachel Lee Cook a ponytail and glasses to make her ugly.
So you see him, he's been kind of indoctrinated with all this, listening to this podcast. Again, if Chris Pine was more of a figure that you saw, or really could hear more of his ideology, you could kind of maybe get it a little bit more of how he kind of got more and more sucked in. That's why I think that maybe you should have just opened the movie up with the stuff of their marriage, kind of how it fell apart, the kind of how that situation happened, and then transition into the more of the virtual reality stuff, instead of trying to rely on the twist of, oh, this is what really, this is what really it is. So you see that, so she figures that out, Florence Pugh, that because constantly in the movie they talk about like we're not supposed to go to where they work, we don't go up there, we don't talk about it, what they do, that we just stay here, we stay at home.
Yeah, it's a message of stay in your place. It's like stay in the kitchen, stay in the house.
Yeah, so you see that. So the place where they go to work, supposedly, that's the portal back to the real world where they can wake up, and they can return there. So he signed up for this program that they were doing, in the real world, Harry Styles character, and then he strapped Florence Pugh to the bed. You know what I mean? And it's like a Clockwork Orange situation where her eyes are pried open, and it got these things that pry her eyes open, and she, her eyes get scanned, and basically she goes into this 1950s world. I don't know if that's a situation with all the women. Is that how it's like? But I don't know.
Assume.
Yeah, maybe.
It's something that is horrifying to think about, especially considering a lot of the people that get sucked into these kind of manosphere kind of podcast worlds. But it's not addressed at all.
Yeah, I mean,
and now that we're talking about it, the logic is running through my head and then kind of starting to trip over itself here, because the whole catalyst for them, kind of a wedge being driven between them and the real world, was his lack of a job and her taking on more shifts at the hospital, where she is a surgeon, by the way, not just like a nurse or an orderly. She is an actual surgeon. So why they're hurting for money, I don't know, but that's a different point entirely. But yeah, so his whole thing is, oh, well, he doesn't have a job, but he has, like, this program, this thing that he puts them in, you have to pay for it. And he mentions in the movie that where he goes, when he exits back into the real world every day, is to actually work so he can keep paying for this fantasy life. And it's like, well, if you're now making money like you needed to before, I mean, clearly it wasn't that hard for your ass to get a job.
There's a thing with there where it's like, even in those little flashes of their life in the real world, it's really implied that Jack is kind of a lazy piece of shit. He doesn't actually want to do any work. He just likes the idea of being the man in charge. So he probably just strapped her into this like simulation world and just works shit jobs in order to make enough money to pay the rent and to pay to be in this like little virtual world.
Yeah. I mean, men will, instead of going to therapy, they'll literally create an entire virtual reality world. Yeah.
Men will trap you in the fucking Matrix instead of go to therapy.
Which, yeah, like you have to pay for this virtual reality world, and the basis for it, it's like I kind of understand, like, with a lot of these things a lot of these guys talk about, it's like, women are, the reason they're unhappy is because they're going against their biology and what they're designed to be, and they were, happier just being housewives and sitting at home.
Oh my god, did you listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson? Because you're quoting him verbatim.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of breakdowns on the guy, a lot of YouTube videos on the guy, but
I listen to a lot of roasts of the guy.
So yeah, I mean, I get that. So she's trying to illustrate that point of saying, like, okay, this, like, him trying to keep her in this virtual reality, Harry Styles' character, because she's overworked as a surgeon and he thinks that she's unhappy and everything like that. It's like, okay, well, this is what's going to make her happy, is just doing nothing all day and being a housewife, back to her, this is, again, that's what a lot of these guys think, back to their original design, is women are supposed to be just housewives and homemakers and mothers instead of having careers and jobs and things like that. But I just don't think, like, you're paying for this whole reality to do this. Again, it's like, also there had to be people that are looking for her family. She's a top surgeon who, that's looking for her as well.
It's like, it's really unbelievable that nobody at the hospital ever called their house, and who knows how much time has passed since she has been in this reality.
Yeah. So when
I think the answer lies in the earlier draft of the script. I was reading an article about it on Insider, and they actually, believe it or not, explained all that he faked her death, and waited until, like, the mourning period was over and a funeral had been held, like a symbolic one, but a funeral had been held and everything. Meanwhile, he just had her locked away the whole time. I mean, this is like a passenger's level of goof, where, why did you change so much from the original script? The original script was perfect.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that original script, just thinking on this movie and the fact that, Olivia Wilde is directing this, and she wanted to like branch out into like more horror or more like psychological thriller. Why the fuck didn't you do that?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
guess because you're fucking your like lead star who's supposed to be the villain of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, because this is written by the same woman who did Booksmart. So this is written by the same woman. So it's the same kind of team they had behind that. And I thought Booksmart, the script was tight and funny.
Yeah, script was tight, but that also wasn't really anywhere near the high concept of this movie. Because Booksmart is a very straightforward teen comedy.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that would, had a lot of issues there doing a movie like this. But yeah, so that was also kind of an issue that's not really explained. And then when she wakes up, the whole thing about her just getting out. I mean, she's still tied to the bed. So how the hell is she gonna get?
Still tied to the bed. She's still tied to the bed. Nobody knows she is there. The one person that could untie her is dead next to her. So unless you're like some Houdini type shit, you are also going to die on that bed.
Yeah, and you got to think her
unless somebody decides to come to help, which, let's be honest, just listening to the sounds of that neighborhood ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. And you got to think her legs and arms probably are not going to be working pretty well because she's been tied up to
just atrophied to shit, which was which tying back to Barbarian, Zach Kreger's last movie, Miss March, where that was a running gag through that.
So that just was like the ending. Yeah, it was just like, so all of that for that lackluster type of thing. Rose, did you have any more kind of issues about the ending or the reveal or anything like that?
He said it was just so rushed and under-explained, and said made all the more frustrating by what apparently was cut out of it, seemingly no reason. Because it makes the movie make less sense without that stuff in there. I hope the full version of that script eventually makes its way online. I would love to read it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you see Gemma Chan, who's in the movie, who and then she kills.
She has the most like confusing end to her character, because the entire third act, Chris Pine is just like in his pool house, just like pacing back and forth, going on the phone, is like, "Yo, did you catch Florence Pugh yet?" And then out of nowhere, Gemma Chan stabs him.
Yeah, she guts him like a fish, and then she says, "Now it's my turn," and that is the last you see of her.
Like, motherfucker, are you trying to turn this into a goddamn franchise? I mean, I know Warner Brothers, you're strapped for cash, but you're banking on the "Don't worry, darling" verse.
Like, there's no implication that she was trashed like Florence Pugh, or she was in it with him.
But dude, I gotta tell this story real quick. So when I came to the theater to go see "Don't Worry, Darling," Josh, I sent you this picture and I posted it all over. The only thing on the screen, it wasn't like the usual ad B-roll that they play before they roll the trailers. It was literally just, "Would you like to recover your desktop?" It was like that screen. Which I guess I should have taken as a sign. Which, Josh, if you can pull that up on the chat. It's
let me see. I think you posted it on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull it up there. But
it's like the entire time I was just riffing during it. Is like, damn, I know things are rough at Warner Brothers, but are they this bad? They can't even pay for the like pre-theater B-roll.
Oh man, let me see if I can pull it. But yeah, that ending just, I didn't really get that with Gemma Chan. I mean, it was Gemma Chan supposed to represent, I don't know, like a pick-me, I guess. Is that what she's supposed to represent in a situation?
Either that, or it was just a hastily constructed consequence of Chris Pine not being in the script originally.
I guess Gemma Chan is supposed to be like a representation of a pick-me girl, or kind of what what Yvonne Strahovski's character in The Handmaid's Tale is supposed to be, where it's just this like really self-serving kind of person that, hey, this is the way the world's gonna go, so I'm just gonna like keep what I got. And then this turn that comes out of nowhere, it's not even really set up, it's not really well established, which I guess is a result of A, Chris Pine's character not being in the original script, and B, this just kind of half-baked premise and half-baked resolution to this movie.
Yeah. And like, I got the picture right here, by the way, of what Nick was looking at when he was on the screen. I got it right here. Yeah, it was this error code. Yeah. Well, I got that on Twitter. Yeah.
I literally screamed at the projectionist because I do IT for the military. I screamed at him, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?"
Yeah. So there you have that. Yeah. So I mean, and then like you have,
can't make this shit up. I should have seen it as a sign.
and then you have Olivia Wilde's character, who getting into some more themes of who I guess is supposed to represent. I don't know. I mean, a woman who I guess was just happier in that type of. You have that it was just happy being just that mother homemaker type person and will do anything to stay there. I guess is that what she's supposed to represent? I guess.
Yeah, I mean that she made the most sense to me once they revealed that she's there voluntarily because her children died for some unspecified reason previously. And I don't have kids myself, but I definitely understand I would do literally anything to get them back if they died, even if it meant living in this like Matrix world. She was probably the least offensive out of all of those. Like everyone connected with it.
Yeah, but then it was, I guess, but she also knew that all the other women were possibly trapped there.
Yeah, they could have had her acting a little bit more, I don't know, coy or mysterious. But when the stuff starts to get real and Florence Pugh starts to have her like outbursts and everything, she's one of the first people to go, "Oh, you're crazy. You need to stop." It's like,
yeah, she's literally first in line to gaslight Florence Pugh in the movie.
Yeah, which I guess that's supposed to speak to the themes and concepts of the movie of a woman who's in a position like this of why question this is working out so well, don't kind of question anything, just accept kind of the reality of what's going on. Your husband, he got this big promotion, you should be happy for him, just kind of enjoy that, and there you go. So yeah, like I said, yeah, there's a lot of kind of like half-baked kind of stuff kind of going on in it that really it's like a lot of concepts, not a lot of good execution. I think is kind of the big thing with it. Yeah, so anything else anybody want to say?
It's the definition of a B+ for effort movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what?
You say something? Or
but C-.
C-
for effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of was
in other words, if you have my parents, you're getting kicked out of the house.
Yeah, so disappointing outing from Olivia Wilde, her second movie. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a shame. Yeah, so that was Don't Worry, Darling. All right. That was a good review. Good to discuss a lot of stuff with that kind of going on in that movie. When people were having that thread of like comparing it to Men and Promising Young Woman and Last Night in Soho as being like bad movies.
Hey, Last Night of Soho rips.
Yeah, I like Last Night Soho. And I like Men too. I like Men. That's pretty good.
And B, those nerds can get fucked because they clearly have never felt the touch of a woman.
Yeah, it was actually a woman who made the post.
Consensually have felt the touch of a woman.
Yeah, well, it was a woman who made the post too. It was a woman who made that. Yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, I like those movies. But I saw some of their points on it a little bit there. But yeah. How did you feel about movies like Promising Young Woman, Last Night in Soho, and Men there, Rose? How did you feel about those movies?
Unsurprising. They definitely had problems, but I liked what they were kind of aiming for. Nothing else. Yeah, they had good acting, good production design. Kind of the same problem as this one. Like everything else was great, just a little flawed in the execution. But yeah, I like them.
Okay. Yeah, I would say they have good acting, great execution in everyone but Men, because I haven't seen it yet. But Promising Young Woman and Last Night in Soho are incredible movies. So get fucked, nerds.
Yeah, the only issue I had with Last Night in Soho is just I didn't like the ending. I didn't really like the ending too much. The conclusion, which we talked about. We talked about it up on the channel. And then Men is also up on the channel. I discussed it with Jenna. Jenna, who is also a critic from oneofus.net. We talked about it. And yeah, so. But I like to have more discussions about movies like this other than saying that it's just saying men bad. Like, you know, I don't think Men is just saying men bad. I think there's a lot more to discuss with the movie other than that. But
yeah, which speaking of like that entire argument, there is like a split second right before the credits roll of this movie that immediately undercuts everything that the movie was trying to say.
yeah.
It's like a scene where Florence Pugh is like right at the gate to get back to the real world, and she like hallucinates her husband, the man who kidnapped, drugged her, forced her into this matrix reality, and they're being all lovey-dovey with each other. It's just it immediately undercuts everything that you were trying to say in this movie, or it
totally
devalues your
broke
entire message.
Well,
I mean, I guess unless you want to talk about how like abusive partners end up going back to their abuser, but you're in the last like 30 seconds of your movie, Miss Wilde.
but he's so dreamy. I mean, every guy's dreamy like Harry Styles.
He is a young blood.
You know.